Thanks for clicking on to the Tuesday edition of Vogan's European Outlook. Welcome to summer again. It certainly didn't arrive during July and August, but it lo and behold turns up in the month of September. And that can sometimes be the case actually when you've got a rather cool, wet and unsettled mid and second half of the summer. More often than not, we start to see the return of summer into the early portion of September from a historical and climatological point of view. Will it last? Well, it looks as if the models are trending a little bit cooler and a little bit more unsettled as we go towards the mid and second half of the month. I will stand by the call of a warmer, drier than average September, generally speaking, but of course it isn't as clear cut as that. It won't be a repeat of June, that's for sure. Winds have changed direction quite considerably this afternoon, so we do have a very different temperature profile. These were the highs yesterday, and it looks as if we got up to 26.8 Celsius at Dice, Aberdeen. And of course, the core of warmth was in the eastern portion of Scotland, and of course, down through the area between Birmingham, Bristol, and towards Oxfordshire and west of London. And then, of course, the current temperatures are as follows here. So you can see here that the core of warmth has shifted west thanks to winds changing from a southwesterly direction to a southeasterly direction, pushes all the warmth towards the west here. And of course, you've got the winds blowing over the relatively cool North Sea waters. A very different story, a good near 10 Celsius less in this general region here along the Aberdeenshire coast compared to yesterday. Quite an appreciable 26 at both West Frew and also Prestwick. Down across areas just to the west of London, it looks as if we're close to the 30 Celsius mark, possibly a fraction less than what was expected. Ireland, we're seeing some impressive temperatures here as well. And indeed, we do have another few days of temperatures likely to surpass 30 Celsius. So we are reaching heatwave threshold, especially across England, Wales, and even a few sites in Ireland as well. Now, look at these temperatures here for this morning. A big variation in temperature, actually. While it was 19, 20 Celsius in parts of England and Wales this morning, my dashboard as I drove past Car Bridge on the A9 read 3 Celsius. Lots of mist and fog patches around as well. You can see here temperatures down to 4.1 at Aviemore. But look at the temperature here in particular. Valencia Observatory on the southwest coast of Ireland. Temperature stayed at 24 Celsius during the overnight. So a pretty astonishing overnight warmth holding on in southwest Ireland. This would be impressive even in July and August, never mind September. And the overnight minimum, according to Meteoseal anyway, is 22.3 Celsius. So the temperature didn't drop below that all night long down here in the southwest of Ireland. Some very impressive temperatures indeed for this time of the year. Of course, 19 looks as if was the low in parts of Devon and Cornwall during the overnight period. 18 Celsius at the St Catherine's Point in the south coast of the Isle of Wight here, and you see here widespread temperatures in the Midlands here actually down to around 10 Celsius, and we did have some variation across the northern half of the UK as well here, Northern Ireland. So interesting times, of course, when you've got a little bit of breeze and even some overnight downslope, and you can have very, very warm temperatures, but also when you drop that temperature, you see some cool pockets developing, and that's exactly what we've seen during the overnight period. 850 temperatures over London at the moment are knocking the door, if not actually at 20 Celsius at 5,000 feet over London. So very, very warm temperatures here, 850 in this region of the world. But as you can see here off the GFS ensemble, we do have a downward trajectory in that 850 temperature profile during the middle and second half of this month here. But it stays slightly above average in the ensemble mean, as you can see here. Looking at Inverness at the opposite side of the UK, and you can see here that we are plus 15, 16 Celsius at 850. That's pretty warm air, especially across northern UK at this time of the year. Notice here it goes back to average around the 12th, 13th, and then holds close to average for the period all the way up to the 20th of September here. Now, the Arctic oscillation is positive at the moment, so that, of course, means lower pressure towards the Arctic, higher pressure towards the UK and Europe, hence why we've got warm conditions, and that is reinforced by the NAO being positive at the moment. Of course, we've had likely the most negative NAO summer since 2009, and of course, quite often with these negative NAO summers, it looks as if we quite often see a surge back towards positive in the NAO, which means we promote higher pressure, drier conditions, and indeed often warmer temperatures as a result of that. But notice something, it is trending, according to the GFS ensemble, back towards neutral and even negative during the second half of this month. And that is reflective here in the CFSV2 weeklies here. Now, this is the model's updating at the moment, so this is a slightly outdated version, but this is the latest run that we can see in the upcoming 7-day period. Classic positive NAO pattern, negative over Greenland, positive over the Mid-Atlantic and indeed Europe and the UK. Notice the negative here across and just to the west of Iberia. This was the deliverance of that flooding event across parts of Portugal and Spain, of course, Madrid being the focal point of some major flooding. We also need to keep our eyes, by the way, on a system over the Mediterranean is developing. We could see some historic levels of flooding in parts of Greece and the Balkan region in the next 24 to 36 hours. We'll look at that in a little bit more detail. If I don't get the chance today, I'll try and look at that tomorrow, because that is actually quite a big event, that. But in today's video, I want to kind of look at the medium range picture here and see the evolution of the pattern as we go from positive to negative NAO. Notice here in week 2, we shift the core of the high to the west of the British Isles. Also, that core of negative goes from Greenland towards the northern half of the British Isles here. But high pressure in the means is still stronger than average in the week 2 here. So, of course, this is the hemispheric view. But notice something. Between week 1, you can see here the positive NAO signal. We've got, of course, the positives down towards the mid-latitude region as opposed to the north. Lower heights, Greenland, and towards the Arctic region, that's that negative NAO. But notice the flip around in the upper pattern as we push through week 2. And then in the week 3, you notice the heights are rising over the Arctic, rising over the North Atlantic and Greenland here. That would indicate the potential for lower heights, for a time anyway, across the UK and Ireland here. But the CFSV2 then has that high regrouping over the UK and Ireland as we push towards the period 26th of September through the 3rd of October. Long way off, of course, but it looks as if we do have a downward trend in terms of at least temperature, and high pressure maybe not as strong towards the mid and second half of this month here. But like I say, I stand by my ideas that we have an overall warmer and drier than average September. And I think really this front running week of September will skew the remainder of the month. If we get like well above average, like we're seeing at the moment here across the UK and Ireland, it takes a lot to remove that warmth. June being a perfect example for the overall summer. Very, very warm June. Then a slightly below average July, slightly average to above average across the UK for August. That then tips the balance, and then that 90-day period becomes warmer than average. In fact, it was the 8th warmest summer on record for the UK. I know that's hard to believe given what July and August was like. But of course, warm sea surface temperatures around the UK combined with that June has tipped the balance of that warmth, generally speaking here. But this is week 1 of the CFSV2. Very strong area of high pressure centered over Central Europe, extending over the UK and Ireland here. Of course, that southwesterly flow allowing the core of that warmth over Europe to lift north. And of course, the result of that being day after day of 30 Celsius in the south. Week 2, you can see here it flattens out. The core of the high weakens. It shifts to the west. But generally speaking, we still have higher pressure in control. Then it looks as if that period between the 19th of September and the 26th, possibly the response to that negative NAO signal coming together, we may see a little bit more lower heights over the UK and Ireland, and that is reflective in the precipitation forecast. You see that we are actually slightly below average in terms of rainfall here. The front run in 2 weeks, firmly below average in terms of rainfall. So it would have to be a very wet second half of September to make this a wetter September compared to average here. So I think the overall ideas are pretty decent in terms of the forecast. So week 1 into week 2, maybe slightly wetter than average across the far north, but the bulk of the UK drier than average. And then, of course, it goes slightly wetter than average, and then it's 50-50 towards that period between the 26th of September and the 3rd of October here. So interesting times to come, that's for sure. Looking at the overall chart here of the ECMWF, high pressure and control at the moment, core high over Europe, low pressure, a fairly large envelope of low pressure to the southwest of the UK and Ireland. Keeping an eye on this little feature here on the northern flank of that low. That is going to try and drift northwards, bringing enhanced showers and thunderstorms. Of course, we've got a warm, humid air mass in place. But that is the reason, of course, this profile here is the reason why we've seen the temperatures, warmth shifting from east to west between yesterday and today, of course. I think Aberdeen saw its warmest September day on record here. But you notice here as we play through the loop into the middle and second half of this week, easterly winds means we're going to trim back the temperatures in the east, where it may hold on to some har, fret across that eastern areas of the British Isles. Core of the warmth shifts towards the west here. But notice here, as we start to press towards the middle and second half of the week, we start to lower the heights. That area of high pressure drifts off towards the Norwegian Sea. And then, of course, it's all eyes on that feature to the south and west of Iberia. May allow some disturbed weather to try and drift northwards here. ECMWF isn't really showing it through the middle portion of the week, but notice here that as we press towards the second half of the week, just have a little bit of increased humidity coming up, and that southerly flow may instigate some showers and thunderstorms. The GFS actually is a little bit more bullish in terms of sending a disturbance northwards, enhancing any kind of shower and thunderstorm activity. But generally speaking, it's high and dry through the remainder of this week. Very little in the way of rainfall. Still plenty of warmth to speak about with a slack southerly airflow here. Play through the loop into the weekend here. You notice here that we're starting to lower the heights, therefore we increase the chance of showers and thunderstorms developing as you slightly cool the mid and upper levels of the atmosphere and increase that humidity at the surface. That increases the instability within the atmosphere. Play through the loop. You notice here that as we push towards the second half of the weekend, then we start to see a bit of a breakdown in this kind of heat wave, so to speak, with increased showers and storms. Area of low pressure and an associated frontal system starts to edge in later Sunday into Monday. So we get this breakdown coming as we push towards the early portion of next week here. So this is where, of course, those 850s are coming down, seen by the ensemble mean here. And that is reflective in the ECMWF operational chart here. So we've got this breakdown, heavy rainfall moves in towards the early portion of next week, but then heights come back up for a period of time. There's another area of low pressure seen by the ECMWF coming through. So we do have that low pressure return towards mid-month. And then, of course, it's a battle between high and low pressure, I think, as we push towards the second half of the month overall here. As I've said time and time again, be sure to check out the September outlook. I do have a couple of things to add to that. I haven't had a chance. It's been a pretty chaotic few days, actually. Haven't had a chance to complete that, unfortunately. But the September ideas are there to be seen. And, of course, we will look at the second half of autumn here, mid and second half, so October and November, what kind of regime that we see may have burn on the early portion of the winter season. Do check out GAVSWEATHERVIDS. He did have his first winter update released on Sunday past. There is a link to his channel in the description below. Some terrific content he provides day by day, so I do encourage you to check that out. And I will be looking at the winter season more and more through this month here. So plenty of reasons to stick around markhoganweather.com and here on YouTube as well. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy the sunshine and warmth. And I'll see you again hopefully tomorrow with more. Bye for now.